Hello and welcome to another episode of Fans Forum here on expressionstar.com. I have here for the first time in a while our esteemed Sporting Star columnist John Lalley, just fresh from a game of tennis, I believe, John, as well, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you win?
Modesty forbidden, yes I did.
Fair enough. Okay, and we've got you here. We like to discuss the big topics here on expressionstar.com, and obviously the big one, I think, sort of it's a massive issue for all of football, really, isn't it? Is the chief executive comments on Saturday on how Saturday afternoon football, certainly at least being shown in the pubs and so on these satellite channels, is now adversely harming the gates at Molineux and I suppose at clubs across the land. What did you make, first of all, John, of the story and Jez's comments in relation to that?
Well, I was certainly aware in the last two home games against Tottenham and QPR that both sets of supporters were chanting "Your ground's too big for you." And I actually moved back into the North Bank for the QPR game, and the Steve Bull, I don't think I've ever seen a Premier match where there were so many empty seats. Mind you, it becomes Queen's Park Rangers supporters singing a tune like that when they only get about 15,000 for their games.
Well, they've got a fine one to talk about, Gates.
But it's an expensive game, Craig, isn't it?
Yes.
If you're a die-hard supporter and you want to see the club and you're prepared to pay the money, then yes. But if people have got an alternative of watching from a Sky subscription or just popping down the road to watch at the pub instead of paying upwards of £40, what are you going to do?
Well,
it's human nature.
Of course. I mean, the matchday experience as a supporter, how much does that generally cost you, as it was?
Well, I suppose for an away match, it can be, well, depending on where you're going, it can be upwards of £40 for a ticket, or if you go to the Villa, even more.
You haven't got out if you ever go to QPR.
£12, £15, £20 coach tickets, programmes, refreshments. It's an expensive day.
Got out if you fancy a pint when you're there as well.
And where does it all end? It just seems to go on and on and on. Supporters are getting their pockets picked to a greater degree every single season. It's not surprising that people are looking for alternatives. And of course, if entertainment ratio is like it was against QPR, then they'll lose a few more for the next home match.
Well, that's it. I mean, you as you've supported Wolves all of your life, and you've seen probably the birth of all of this. And again, you're going to see probably a lot more in your time.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you explain? I mean, when the Premier League came in, football taken away from terrestrial. I mean, at one point, football was on terrestrial television. That didn't adversely harm the gates at the time.
And it's football taken away from the supporters, isn't it? Because for an average supporter, he has got absolutely no connection whatsoever with the people he's watching because of their wealth. I had to laugh I don't know how he did it with a straight face when Sir Alex Ferguson, of all people, had the effrontery to go in front of the BBC and complain that television was ruling football and it should stop, when it's made people like him absolute multi-millionaires, and if ever a club's sold their soul to the devil, it's his.
Well, they're not the only ones.
They're not the only one, but they've certainly exploited it to the last penny, haven't they?
Yes. I mean, even I think, is it cycles, John? Have you seen it, or is it just seemed to have been the last 20 years when football gobbled itself up from a financial perspective?
I don't think there's anything ever been quite like this. I mean, wages of upwards of £150,000-200,000 a week. It's just unbelievable. I mean, when I first started going, I hate to come the old soldier again, but the maximum wage just in operation was 20 quid per week.
Jerry Hill for that.
I mean, even he couldn't have envisaged what was going to happen. I mean, what he did for football, what he did for basic justice was correct. But the way it's mushroomed at the moment is it's frightening, and Lord knows where it all ends. And they're divorced from reality from the rest of the society, aren't they? I mean, the rest of us are struggling financially, but it just doesn't seem to have affected them in the slightest.
Can you sort of apportion any blame to the people who are not going for whatever reason?
No, I can't. For a bloke who's taking a couple of kids down with his season tickets and the expense that it just isn't cost effective, is it? No.
Especially, I mean, the recession has got to be. I mean, that is a factor, isn't it? There's no getting away from that.
Well, it seems to have hit everything bar football.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it all ends.
Especially if this recession is going to snowball, as some predict it will. Could that eventually? Well, we've waited for some years now for something that's going to knock football.
I don't think it will. I think Sky are absolutely embedded with football, aren't they? I mean, I think they are the same entity. The Premier League and Sky Television are one together, aren't they?
Yes.
They're one huge cash-making cow.
That's what Sky wanted.
That are joined at the hip.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to change that.
But could we get to a scenario at the same time where Wolves are in the Premier League in, say, 5, 10, 15 years' time, and they're on Sky, but Molineux empty? Because the gate revenue surely can't be that great a factor. It's the TV money that runs the club.
Well, as Jez has said, we've lost 2,500 from last year, and despite the recent run, you'd still suggest that Wolves are a club on an upward spiral, who haven't exactly spent a great many years in the top division over the last 30 odd years, but even we are 2,500 down. What was the gate for QPR against Villa on Sunday? It was about 15, 16.
No, it wasn't very good, was it? So, Villa Wolves again?
Exactly. Well, the Villa prices, I mean, that is just too much. It's just too expensive for people. Is it any wonder that there are huge gaps at Villa Park?
Yeah. I mean, you've seen how it evolved. If you an educated guess, where could you see it all end in the scenario I've just mentioned?
Who knows? I don't see football imploding, because I just think there's too much television money coming through.
God help them if that ever changes, I suppose.
It doesn't bear thinking about.
There's this more. I mean, for a club like Wolves and Albion as well, I suppose, if they were to drop out of the Premier League, I mean, the financial consequences, if that was to happen in 5 or 10 years' time, could be disastrous, couldn't it?
Yeah, but as I've said, Wolves haven't exactly spent many years in the top division over the last 30 years anyway, have they?
Yeah.
Clubs survive. You cut your cloth accordingly. We didn't spend vast amounts of money in the summer. Lots of supporters are complaining about this now, but I suppose the club were being prudent. When you're operating at gates of only 23, 24,000 as we are, and having to find the money to pay the wages, you're in a very, very difficult position, which is why I've always thought this season for us is just survival.
Yeah, you've just got to stay at the party, haven't you, pretty much. So.
Absolutely.
And we've done a big feature in the newspaper this week as well about these pubs that are putting their games on, and they're having packed houses on a Saturday, and you can't really blame them for that, can you? So.
Well, I believe that's going to the courts very soon, isn't it?
Yes.
For a final decision.
I wonder if that's going to change, don't you? So.
But there's one open just by where I live, and I must say, for some of the less tempting away matches, long journeys costing lots of money, all I've got to do is just pop down the road and watch it there. I may be tempted.
Okay, final question. With obviously the way the recession's going, and with the attendance problems that we've mentioned and the likely scenarios that could lie ahead, can we really blame the club for not going out and spending X amount of pounds on X, Y and Z players, which is what draws them criticism as well sometimes?
No, I don't think you can. I think a lot of people will, especially if the bad run continues. The critics will be quick to say that apart from Roger Johnson, you're operating with exactly the same players that finished last season. In fact, you might be worse off with the likes of Dave Jones gone, Marcus Hanneman gone, I don't know. But I think they were sensible. They're a prudent club, they're a well-run club, and I still think the owners are the best thing that happened to Wolves in a long, long time.
Okay, those are the thoughts of our Wolves columnist John Lalley, talking about the issue not just affecting Wolves, and I don't think we've heard the last of it, have we, John?
I don't think so.
Well, we would like to hear your thoughts on the debate. Please comment on the video, and we'll be seeing John again. Black Country Derby time, isn't it?
Indeed.
I think you'll have problem selling tickets for that one.
I don't think so.
Okay. Those are the thoughts of John Lalley. I'm Craig Birch. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.